Hey, welcome back to Web3 with Whitney. This is day 18, and today I'm going to focus on mental health, or at least start to dive into this subject matter. I feel like this is really at the core of my place in Web3, taking a balanced approach that keeps in mind our well being is incredibly important to me. And as I was prepping for this live stream, I realized that there just aren't a ton of resources yet. The most resources I found about mental health in Web3 are on Twitter, and I may have just not stumbled across them yet, but I was surprised by how when I search for Web3 and mental health, Web3 and wellness, and Web3 and well being, very few hits came up in my searches. And maybe it's because the word Web3 is still fairly new. Of course, if you search for mental health, wellness, or well being on their own, there are so many people talking about that. Uh, but I think that based on a lot of the conversations I'm hearing and seeing about Web3, there are a lot of concerns and also about Web2. So, Web2 being very centered around social media platforms, there are lots of concerns about what technology in general is doing to our mental health and our emotional state and well being. This has been at the core of my main podcast, This Might Get Uncomfortable. In fact, numerous episodes have touched upon this. And that's because it really hits close to home for me. Have been working in this kind of mental health adjacent wellness world for now, I think about 14 years. When I first got started online with my work, I started a blog called Eco Vegan Gal and was very focused on veganism, which was mostly about food and lifestyle choices as well as environmental things. And over time, I realized that I was very interested in the emotional side of things, which the vegan world and environmental world don't necessarily touch upon. And then I also noticed through my personal experiences how much I wanted to learn about well being and not just wellness. I think that there's a difference between those two words. And so I typically use the word well being when I talk about mental health. And I also am finding myself wanting to move away from even using the phrase mental health because it's become a bit cliche. It's very focused on, which I think is wonderful, but it also can start to become driven by capitalism and self-interest. It can be diluted a lot. And luckily, the word well being hasn't been quite as much yet, but we'll see. Anyway, so I also noticed a lot of my focus turning towards my own mental health when I was exploring my history with disordered eating and examining my anxiety and feelings of down or depression, sadness, stress, all of these emotions, um, just the self inquiry I was taking. And then I also started to become very drawn to this when I started my podcast, This Might Get Uncomfortable. And a lot of that was built upon the fact that I felt a lot of burnout as a content creator. And I've noticed over the years so many people feeling that way. So, anyways, that's a little bit of my background and my interest in all of this. And so I'm trying to carry that with me into Web3 as much as possible. I have some resources to share with you today, which I'm really excited about. And hopefully, all the tech issues are okay. Although, hold on, I feel like I need to close down some apps. I normally restart my computer right before I go live. And today I was like, I'm not going to do that, mostly because honestly, I'm feeling very drained today. And this is why I ended up wanting to focus on this subject matter. Ooh, I think this is helping. So I skipped over some things. I'm also not broadcasting to TikTok where I tend to do. And I just wanted to keep this very low key. It's also almost 7 p.m. Pacific time, which is several hours later than I normally go live. And that was because I was feeling really tired today. And this is a key element of the intersection between Web3 and mental health. Before I get into more of that, though, I also like to start off most of these episodes with a little update on what's going on with this series and any shifts happening. So let me pull up my screen over there for you. If you didn't know this already, if you're new to this show, you can go to whitneylauritsen.com/web3 and find everything all in one place on my website here. And I recently added this section to make it really easy for you to earn free Wellcoin, which is my social token. And I actually had someone that took me up on this today who I'll be reaching out to, who submitted a really wonderful topic request. You can find all of the past episodes here and also the audio recordings. And I meant to keep this open, but somehow it disappeared. So I have to pull this back up. But I just added Web3 with Whitney, the audio version, to Spotify last night, thanks to this platform I use called Hello Audio. And that has allowed me to make this show private because right now, as I'm working through all the tech issues, I don't feel super confident about the quality. And this show is designed to be a video live stream, not a podcast, but the podcast is actually where most people are absorbing the content. So it's possible I might actually switch the roles and make this mostly a podcast with the video being secondary, or primary the podcast, video secondary. We'll see. But you can now get it on Spotify. I just have to connect one other element of Hello Audio with it because since it's a private show, when you go to it on Spotify, you'll see this little paid symbol. It's completely free. You don't have to pay for anything. In fact, I would like to pay you for participating using my Wellcoin. That's how I'll pay you. But anyways, stay tuned because if you enjoy listening to podcasts on Spotify, despite all the recent controversies that have been going on in the past few weeks with Spotify, I actually think that their podcast platform is awesome and I really like the interface. So that's why I was excited to add Web3 with Whitney there. So stay tuned. You'll also have an opportunity, to my point, to earn Wellcoin, just participating, listening, being part of the show in bigger ways. I really just want to encourage you to do that as much as possible. So whenever you're watching live, if you're watching live right now, you can leave a comment. If you engage with me, I would be happy to send you over some Wellcoin. And in the future, I'll be doing more airdrops like I did about a week or so ago. So let's see, any other updates? I think that's it. Circling back around to this subject matter, and part of my passion for this is that I started submitting well-being tips to the show called Joseph Jaffe is Not Famous. You probably heard me reference it a few times and it's linked in the description. He has something called Wellness Wednesdays. And every week I've had to come up with like a new tip in just a few minutes, like a short segment that he features me on. And it's shown me how I feel like there's just a lot of surface level information in the world of Web3 right now. And I'm trying to better understand exactly what's going on. But I found a few resources that I want to share with you, and I'm going to display on my screen. One of them is this article from Practical Principles on Substack. It's titled, Is Web3 Wrecking Your Mental Health? It's a nice read. It's a quick read, and it has some really great points. One of them, I think, goes back to something I said earlier, which is that Web3 may not necessarily replace our bad tech habits, but actually amplify them. And this is part of my concern, and I think a lot of people's concerns. I saw somebody that I follow on social media who is a public figure post like, hey, I prefer real life over the metaverse, basically. Like, real life is really great. And I thought that was interesting because I don't think the metaverse right now, as it is currently being positioned, is designed to replace real life interactions and experiences. I see the metaverse as adding to it. And I've talked about this in a few episodes specifically around the metaverse. But I think some people really are afraid that the metaverse and NFTs, cryptocurrency, all of this is going to like take over and amplify a lot of things that we're already struggling with. But this is exactly why our knowledge and our awareness around Web3 are key, because if we're afraid of that, we can actually take steps now to hopefully prevent that happening. Now, whether we'll fully have that control, I don't know, but at least right now, we can let our voices be heard. We can speak up for what's important to us. We can share what we don't want to happen. And we can also work on tools to better support people, because people are really going to need support with their mental health. As I've said many times in these episodes, there are so many job opportunities right now in Web3. So if you are a uh, really good with user interface, if you're good with building apps and websites, if you're good with conceptualizing things and managing communities, there are paid gigs that you can get right now. And you also have the opportunity to develop something, more tools, for example, about mental health. So what are the things that people are afraid of, and what are the things that are already happening? Well, according to this article, there are a number of toxic potential issues here. I try to use the word toxic very gently. And I encourage you to read through, but I wanted to summarize it. And then the article also shares some things that you can do about it. So one of them is that people tend to fall into the comparison trap. And this is also very similar, as I mentioned, to Web 2 and the issues we're seeing with social media. Is we see so many people sharing the highlights of their life, whether it's through photos, whether it's through tweets, whether it's through videos and podcasts, and people kind of sharing the best parts, like what's going really well, their successes. And especially in Web3, a lot of people showcasing their financial success. And I find this off putting. Sometimes I find it encouraging, but mostly I feel like it doesn't matter to me. I don't really need to see somebody else reminding me over and over again how well things are going for them monetarily, right? Like maybe if I'm seeking it out, great. Maybe if I see it every once in a while, but overwhelmingly when I've gone on Twitter, it feels like it's full of people talking about money, talking about success, talking themselves up over and over again. And I'm actually looking for more information and education than I am for success stories, right? And this article kind of goes into this, how you can try to examine and pick apart like what exactly the context is for that success. Is it luck? Is it years and years of work? Is it, you know, somebody kind of scamming their way to something? What did they have to put in? What risk did they take to get there? Would you be willing to do that yourself? I mean, asking yourself these questions before just falling into the comparison trap. But also noticing if you're feeling drained by it, like I do, that's usually a cue to step away. And I think this is one of the biggest things that we can do in this space, which is not to get too consumed by it. Today, for example, I just have not been productive. I've been tired. My stomach's been upset most of the day, to be honest. And so I just haven't felt like doing anything. And it's frustrating because it's technically a work day, but I haven't had the energy until this moment to even do a live stream. I felt like drained. I wouldn't say burnt out, but it reminds me of the times that I have felt burnt out. And I've been able to identify the moments where I just don't feel good and I need to stop. I need to step away from my computer. I need to put down my phone. I maybe need to take a nap or drink more water or to eat some more food, get outside. And the more I can tune in to how I'm feeling, the more that I can give myself the support that I need and also the permission to do so. That also reminds me of something else, but I'm losing my train of thought. This is also because mentally, oh, this is what it is. Okay. I was going to say mentally, I'm feeling, how do I would even describe it? Like my brain is working differently today, and I think that we just fluctuate as human beings. Maybe we're stressed. Maybe we didn't get enough sleep. Maybe it's just the fluctuations that our bodies go through, that we can't even control. And I think that's incredibly important when it comes to anything on the web. And this leads me to some pros and cons of the lifestyle choices we make, especially when it comes to money. So given that a lot of the talk right now is about money, we really have to be mindful, because I think if we make Web3 too much about money, that's incredibly dangerous. In fact, there's so much research done on the impact of money and our mental health. I brought this up actually in the most recent episode of Joseph Jaffe is Not Famous on the Wellness Wednesday segment this past week. how, and I have some notes here I guess I could reference real quick, but nah, I'll skip it. If you want to hear more about what I found, you can go check out that episode on his YouTube channel, or just ask me and I'll bring it up in another episode. But mainly it was about, we just have to be mindful of not tying too much of our self-worth and our value to how much money we make and how successful we are. And I see so much of this happening in Web3. It's very concerning to me. I mean, it just feels like so in the ego. And I think a lot of that is excitement, right? People wanting to showcase forward momentum. They're excited about the future and the possibilities. And a lot of people's lives are being changed. I mentioned this yesterday. Uh, Web3 has an opportunity to balance out some of the power issues we have. It gives opportunity for people who may not have felt like they could get into certain worlds, that they had the access to it, or the resources, or the discrimination that was getting in their way. There are a lot of doors being opened to people in Web3, and that's incredibly exciting. We should be celebrating it. I'm not saying that people shouldn't be talking about their successes, but if we focus so much on the vanity metrics of how many followers we have, of how much money we're making, of what NFTs we've acquired, of what devices we have, and how much time we spend in the metaverse, and who we've met, and all of those things, it starts to take us away from ourselves. And the farther we get away from ourselves, we can easily lose track of what is really important to us, and that can lead us to feeling lost and confused and scared and lonely and disconnected. So we just have to root ourselves over and over again and find our personal balance. And I really think, as you explore Web3 along with me, that you pay attention to that maybe you set timers for how much time you spend on Twitter and Discord and other platforms. What Twitter spaces and Clubhouse rooms are you listening to? Because those are often very centered in Web3. And who are you listening to as well? One thing I've listed in the notes for this episode is a Twitter list I put together recently about Web3 and mental health. And these are people I've been coming across who write about mental health and focus on it. And they're actually, as I mentioned earlier, a few people, or a handful relatively, of people who are very focused on mental health. And there was a couple cool things that I came across. Actually, I'm going to share them on my screen. One of them I found in this Web3 cohort that I'm in at the moment, and this is called Masawa, the Masawa Fund. It's a mental wellness impact fund, nurturing capital to nurture minds. And I think this is a great example of how you can use money and success to benefit yourself and others and find more of that balance. I think they can be hand in hand. They're not, what's the term, mutually exclusive. They can come together in some really amazing ways, but you do have to actually be mindful about it. So I encourage you to check that out. This account has been added to the Twitter list that I linked to. And the other thing, though, I noticed with that Twitter list, as I was going through it today to try to find some more resources, is like a lot of those people aren't actually posting about mental health that frequently. They'll do it in more subtle and indirect ways, but I'm still not finding like data and support systems. So I'm thinking maybe I need to just get more involved and active about that. So there's NFT projects and there's like groups and communities and discords, but those are also part of the challenge that people are having, where what if you don't have the money to buy those NFTs? You feel left out, and feeling left out can lead people to feel depressed, right? So if you're not even able to access something that's supposed to benefit your mental health, then you get kind of stuck. And how is that actually contributing, right? It's the exclusivity, I think, can be a big issue in Web3. If the mental health community is based in Discord and or Twitter, are those platforms contributing to you feeling really anxious? Are they burning you out because you're spending so much time on your devices, right? So we have to find a way to actually encourage people to do good things for their mental health. And that's not always going to be sitting in front of your computer for hours and hours and reading. And also for someone like me, I get frustrated if I can't find an answer quickly. And today, just looking at my Twitter list, as wonderful as the people are that are in there, they're still posting about all these random things. So I got to try to figure out how I can make that that Twitter list a little bit better and maybe curate it more. And one thing that you can go, if you can see if you go to my Twitter account, which is at Whit Lauritsen, is I'm retweeting things that I found valuable in the mental health world. So at least you can count on me to share that. But I also share other things. My account isn't primarily about mental health. And I'll keep you posted if I find like a solid, really reliable resource that only posts about that and isn't too like triggering in terms of the comparison trap. The other thing that comes up a lot is this idea of FOMO and scarcity. It's a big issue in Web3 and anything in technology. I mean, through my research on social media, as much as I love it, I've also found that these platforms are designed to keep us on there for as long as possible. There's a reason, and by the way, my video keeps blurring for some odd reason. It's probably because I don't have the normal natural lighting that comes from my window. So I apologize if you're watching and it gets blurry. Um, social media, I think, connects us, and it's like that's part of the big aim. It's a great way to get to know people and to spread information, but it's also, as I mentioned, a source of comparison and a source of FOMO, where we feel like if we don't spend all day on Twitter or all day in Discord, all day on TikTok, we're missing out on what's going on. And a lot of us have fear around that. And so we end up spending so much time on these platforms that are designed to trigger our FOMO and designed to keep our attention that we can easily fall into a lot of stress and anxiety and lack of sleep and, lack of focus and all these issues. So we have to do our best to set some parameters around that. And I actually think there's promise in the metaverse that may take us away from just like looking at other people and more to interactive experiences. That's what I hope to see in there. So maybe in a way, the metaverse will end up, and depending on what context the metaverse is, of course, because there's going to be all different variations of it. In my episode about the metaverse, I shared how it's not just one thing. It's not like one world that you go into. Right now, the metaverse is kind of an obscure idea and all these different formations of it. So you might go find your own version of the metaverse that is really relaxing for you. I mean, I've heard people talking about developing meditation universes that you can go into. So imagine if you could step away from TikTok, step away from YouTube, step away from Twitter and Discord and put on some glasses and go and just like sit in a field virtually and hear these great sounds, like especially if that's not accessible to you where you live or the time of year or whatever else. Like to me, that's really exciting. And I hope that we see more and more of that. And that will actually help us deal with these issues of being addicted to the technology. The other thing, of course, is scarcity. And that ties back into these posts, especially with NFTs. A lot of them are designed around scarcity. They're designed to make you feel like, and the FOMO too, if you don't get this right now, you will never get it again. So we have a fear of missing out on something because it is scarce. We have a fear that somebody else is going to make more money and we'll lose out on the opportunity. I've talked about this in terms of the NFTs I've been developing, which, by the way, are rooted in meditation. I've been really trying to take my time with them because my vision with them is that they tie into your well-being. And I've needed to explore the issues that are at hand here versus a few months ago, I felt all this time pressure. Like if I didn't launch my NFTs fast enough that I was going to miss out on opportunities. And when I step back and examine that, I'm like, this is not me. That's that scarcity mindset. There's plenty of time. I can take my time developing a project. I don't need to rush into it. And I'm not going to be centered around how much money there is to be made. If I'm putting something out to make as much money as possible from it, that's not in alignment with my core values. And that's not the reason that I'm here involved in this world, right? But I think a lot of people are in that mindset. And some of that is because of that scarcity mentality. They either don't feel like they have enough money right now, they're afraid that they're going to lose money, they're afraid that the money is going to disappear. They're making a lot of decisions out of that fear. And that will also create more fear around them, right? So if you I really see this on Twitter, how people are posting like, you got to do this now. You got to take advantage of this right now. It's like a lot of that mentality now, 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 now. But I think it might be better for many of us, most of us perhaps, to slow down and say, is this the right decision for me? Is now the right time for me? Is this the best use of my time and my money? Is this really something that I want to get involved with? And noticing when you feel pressured to do something versus when it really feels in alignment with you. That's something that I've been learning more and more in this world. And the last thing that's worth bringing up is something I saw in that article about whether Web3 is wrecking your mental health. And there was a point in here about, what if you're so anxious or depressed that you can't even get started with entering this world? And I think that's really important to keep in mind, especially when you're talking or working with other people in this space. There was a project I was involved with recently, and I had to step away from it because my anxiety kept getting triggered, that I wasn't able to be my best self and do my best work because of other things that I was involved with. But I felt pressure, and I felt like the only way that I can contribute to this project is if I I constantly was in a state of anxiety, basically. Like, it felt like it was one or the other. It was either I had anxiety and worked on the project, or I didn't have anxiety and I didn't work on the project. And I chose the latter. I chose to step away because it wasn't worth that anxiety that I was feeling, because there was so much time pressure. There was so much of a fast pace at a rate that I wasn't comfortable going at. And it was a really hard decision to step away from it, because I wanted to be involved with, and I did have a FOMO. But once I realized that the FOMO was the reason I was staying, I knew it wasn't the right choice for me, because it was not worth the anxiety. And I don't want to be in a place where I feel too anxious or depressed to move forward. But on days like today where I actually did feel that, and I should phrase that, I didn't actually feel anxious or depressed today. I just felt tired, and I felt a little stressed and slightly burnt out. And so I wasn't going to push through that and work anyways. I just don't want to do that in my life. And this is actually maybe one of my final points where I think there are big benefits with Web3. Given that we are moving so much into these digital worlds and technology is developed at a rate where many of us can work from home, that actually gives us some really big advantages. For me, I stopped working for others. Like, I quit my last full-time job in 2010 and my last part-time job in 2012. So it's been 10 years this year that I have been working for myself as a freelancer. I have consulted and advised and coached and done online programs, all this stuff online over the years. And that works really well for me in my own mental health. And for a long time, I realized that not everybody had the resources to do that. Not everybody had the desire to do that. Not everybody had the access to do that. But now in 2022 and beyond, more and more companies are allowing people to work from home and be remote. So it's opening up a lot more doors. More opportunities are coming out. One of the big benefits of Web3 is for content creators to monetize their work, for artists to get paid properly. And as I mentioned, just so many opportunities are opening up now that would allow people to work on their own schedule, work at their own pace, work at their own preferences of their location. And I think that could do wonders for our mental health. But I will also tell you, it's taken me 10 years to really figure out my rhythm. It's taken me years to untether from hustle culture and not get caught up in trying to please others based on their own schedule. I've had to set a lot of boundaries for myself. I've had to really reevaluate and curate my clients and my work environment to work for me. And that's not been an easy road, and it's constantly shifting. But I've done it because it is benefiting my mental health, to the point where today, on a Friday, I was able to take most of the day off and go at my own pace and work in snippets here and there and take as many breaks as I needed to and do this live stream whenever I wanted. And I noticed how much of a difference that has made for me versus in the past, where I was working on other people's schedules and trying to please them and trying to meet their structure. And so if you have that true luxury. If you have that opportunity, be grateful for it and also refine it to a way that works well for you. And if you don't have that opportunity, I think this is where you can start to feel more curious and dive deeper into Web3 and see, are there opportunities that would work better for you so that you can take good care of your mental health? That's the big question here. And yesterday, I shared some resources for job opportunities. Like, you know, again, as stressful as Discord can be, there are so many cool things happening on Discord or Slack, but mostly in Discord I've seen. And I mentioned Telegram a few days ago too, but Discord is like one of the big hubs at the moment. And a bunch of the Discord servers that I'm in have job postings in there. So if you want to know something that you can do right now, you can reach out to me and I can share some of the servers for you to check out. You can reach out to other people. You can start to research good Discord servers, join them, and see what opportunities come up for you. And maybe that will help you down your path of structuring your work situation in a way that's protective of your own boundaries. And if you're currently in a situation where your boundaries are being crossed and your mental health isn't a good state, are there other ways that you can structure things and reevaluate so that you can take better care of yourself? And asking yourself, are the decisions that I'm making good for my mental health? That's the question to keep coming back to. And I'm here to support you along the way, truly. So you can always reach out to me. I want to thank a few people who reached out to me today. It feels like the momentum is building with this series, which really excites me. And more people are kind of coming out of the woodwork. So if you haven't come out of the woodwork yet and you've been like thinking of asking me questions or reaching out, please do. At the very least, I want you to know that I'm here to support you. And that reminds me, there was a couple tweets that I had saved to share. So I'm going to display them up on my screen. One of them came from James Lee, 1987, who said, "Making a metaverse is a beautiful experience, but if you don't take regular breaks, eat/drink, and spend time with family or friends or another hobby, it can really affect your mental health. Come back and your creative skills will 10x." And I think that's just so important, right? It's like sometimes we lose sight of how important eating and drinking are. I've mentioned this before, but I can't even tell you how much of a game changer this water bottle has been for me. It's called the Hydrate, and it lights up and tracks. So the bottom lights up when I haven't had enough water to drink. And I'll see it out of the corner of my eyes blinking. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I have to drink water. And also syncs to my Apple Watch and my iPhone and tells me where I'm at. Right now, I'm at 85% of my water intake for the day. So I think I have like one more bottle of water to drink. And I've noticed a massive difference if I eat better, like right now, and better also. Let me be very mindful about that. I try not to be judgy about food. I have a past history with disordered eating. And one thing that's helped me a lot is to not judge whether food is good or bad, better or worse. For me, though, I find eating a salad or something really fresh at lunchtime helps me so much. Today, I've also started working on reducing my caffeine intake. As tired as I was and how desperately I wanted to have like an energy drink, I skipped it. And I'm going to try to transition myself and lower down my caffeine intake and raise up my fresh food and water and just find some more natural sources of energy. Maybe spend some more time outside, move my body. One thing, if you've ever noticed behind me, is and if you're watching the video, if you're listening to the audio, there's a little mini trampoline back there. And I keep that out. It actually folds up and can slide underneath the bed or wherever else. But I keep it out as a visual reminder to jump on it. And it's called rebounding. It has so many benefits for your health, and it's just like a quick thing to do. So if you have the interest and resources to get one of those or something else, jump roping is this simpler, less expensive thing. Just moving your body will give you natural energy and make you feel better. So take advantage of that whenever you can. And spending time with friends and family. I mean, you probably know all these things. Are any of these things news to you? No, but we need to be reminded of them frequently, especially in this world where we are spending so much time on tech. And one other tweet I want to share before I wrap up is from No Brainers NFT. It's a DAO that said, you spend most of your life inside your head, make it a nice place to be. And I think that's important because we're not just spending time on tech, we're processing all the things that we're seeing through technology in our brains. So we have to take good care of this. Even when we're in the metaverse, right? We are still in our own heads. So we have to make it a nice environment for ourselves. And I just got this flash of the metaverse kind of being like The Sims, if you've ever played that game, and any other similar game where you can like design your character, your avatar, you can design the world they live in and buy them things. Like maybe think about your head like that. Like what environment do you want to live in mentally? I think that's an important question to ask ourselves. And I think I'm going to wrap up there today. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you reach out. I've mentioned before that anyone who reaches out, I will send you some free well coin on Rally if you would like some, give you a little cryptocurrency, an exploration of that. There are things that you can exchange that for. You can even convert that to fiat if you would like. So that's one of my ways of just thanking you for watching and listening and being part of this journey with me. And I truly hope that at the very least, even if you don't want the well coin, that you just reach out, because I want to make sure that you feel cared for and supported in whatever way makes you feel good. And it also makes me feel good to hear from you. That connection, that community is just immensely helpful in this time where some of us can feel very lonely and isolated and afraid and alone and fearful. So let's do what we can to be more connected. That's my big mission. And you're part of it. All right. Well, that's it for today. I'll be back again tomorrow. Hi, KJ. Thanks for being here. I appreciate you saying hello and just holding space for me and others. And I never know when I'm going to go live. I used to have a regular schedule. I was trying to do the same time every day. But actually, for my own mental health, I realized it doesn't really work well for me because sometimes my energy is really low that time of day, or sometimes I have something else I need to schedule. So I'm making this very fluid, but you can always count on the podcast coming out. I will usually post right after I wrap up, or within a few hours, or by the next morning. And as I mentioned, there's going to be some cool things happening with the podcast. So definitely go to whitneylauritsen.com/web3 to get everything all in one place, all the replays, all the links, my contact information about Wellcoin and getting some for free and submitting questions. It's all there. If there's anything else I can do to make this series more beneficial to you, I would love to hear it. And with all that said, I'm going to wrap things up and hopefully I'll see you tomorrow.